The music you listen to says a lot about who you are. In this podcast, we discuss how that music may shape your life. We talk to normal people with a love for music and people that are in the music industry in one form or another. My name is Craig Seibert, and we want to know your music story. Welcome to Music Musing. Welcome back to Music Musing. Got part two of a episode today. I had Sean on the last episode, Sean O'Loughlin on the last episode. Today I have his father, Jim. Why do I have his father, Jim? Because Jim is part of the You're Not Listening podcast that they put together. An amazing podcast where they basically take a song each and dissect it. I mean, microscopically dissect it. And how long have you guys been doing that?
We're just past the 2 years now.
Okay, so you started about the same time we did, but we're about. I think we're 2.5 at this point, just a little bit after we started a little bit after you guys.
I think we're about the same. I think we started around October-ish or so.
Yeah, we started I think February of that same year. So, and I've been on you guys' podcast before. This is your first time on ours. I think we had Sean on doing an episode, but this is your first time on ours.
Did we? Wait, did you do an episode with covers?
Yes.
I was on that one.
You were both on.
Yeah.
I say they're all a blur. You probably feel the same way. You probably couldn't tell me what episode 2 was on yours.
But I obviously made a huge impression on you. Thank you very much, Craig. Appreciate that.
Well, this is the meat of it, though. This is why we come together on this podcast, is because I like to talk about people's music history.
Interesting. Okay.
Because what it, obviously you and your son are into music, and you've been into music all your lives, and it's a pretty popular thing for you. And there are people out there that could care less about music. They listen to the radio, they turn the song on, it's background music. But there are people like us who really it's in our veins. It's in how we've lived our lives. And that's kind of where I go with this. The new version of the podcast is kind of getting that story from people.
Nice. Okay. And
I started with Sean kind of in the middle, because with us both playing guitar in local bands, I kind of made that connection there and then worked backwards from it. But for you, I have a little bit of your history, both because I listen to the podcast a lot, so I know a little bit of your history. We've talked before, me on your podcast, and obviously you on mine, that I swear I remember. But let's start at the beginning. Let's go all the way back. Let's go to when
dinosaurs roamed the earth. Okay, thanks, buddy.
Yeah, when dinosaurs roamed the earth and crawled under the ground. Something in your life probably triggered that music feel, or you remember a lot of things happening with music in your childhood, or maybe even late teens sometimes, for some people. But what do you remember as the first kind of influence of music on your life?
Yeah, it's funny because, and I listened to the episode with Sean, by the way. Well done. I've got some disclaimers and some things I'm going to clear up as well, and add to it too. That he forgot. He was way too humble, but I'll clear that up too. The doting dad. But thanks for allowing people and me to kind of go up and do this, because in our own heads we always think like, oh, that moment and this song and this kind of thing, but you never get a chance to share with people because they don't want to hear it. They don't care to hear it, or they've heard it way too many. Like, all right, okay, Dad, hey Jim, here's that stupid story again. You told this 50 times. Like, all right. And Sean and I have this unique thing where a song or some kind of genre or something will always kind of kick in some of those memories. So I can kind of always put in a little stuff. But listening to Sean's and Sean's episode that he just did with you, maybe you start to think like, okay, where did it start for me? Where did it start? So it kind of like, made me kind of dust off the cobwebs and start to think about it a little more. And the first memory, and I don't know if this is what triggered, my love of music and everything else. I think it probably triggers my love of soul and funk and stuff, was some Ray Charles, believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah. My dad died when I was like 6.
Oh, okay.
And one of 3 kids. My mom was a secretary raising us, on a meager salary. And I can't even imagine what happens, in your life and stuff. we just took it for granted, like, oh, that's just the way it is, and everything else. But I'm sure what happened was, while I was the youngest, while my sister was in school, and my brother was, I think, in maybe high school or something like this. I was a little kid and wasn't maybe in school yet. I remember being shuffled around. I didn't think of it at the time. I thought it was kind of cool at the time, probably to friends of my mother's who said, hey, terrible thing that's happened. Like, let me help. What can I do? And I just remember going over to some people's houses, and I remember it's funny. I remember the street, and I remember the house and the stairs and the kitchen and everything. And off the kitchen, there was this room that they had music in, and a a record player with the the cover,
the flip top.
Up.
It looked like a piece of furniture.
Yeah. And Sandy was the name of the woman. I don't remember anything else about them, but I spent a lot of time over there. And we, she was probably a built-in babysitter or something, when my mom had to work or whatever. And she was into music and would share this kind of stuff with me. And so I remember her playing Ray Charles, like, Hit the Road Jack and some of the other things like this. What is this stuff? So liking that. And then growing up, my brother and I shared a room. I'm 6, he's 16.
Yeah, and in that time frame, a lot of kids do that. I did the same with my brother too.
Yeah, in a room like half the size of this office here. It's like,
yeah,
you're not your side. Stay over there. Like, okay, sorry. And and he was into music, and I remember him playing again the portable record player with the top up of, and I remember Righteous Brothers.
Oh man,
like I'm trying to think of some of the early ones, Everly Brothers. Some of the stuff that was just like, oh, interesting stuff.
The Ventures.
So started to kind of try to get into a little more like that, and then being on my own, as you get older, 12, 14 years old, I think I found music because it was an escape. My mom at that point was tired and needed her own life, and kind of like, all right, Jim, you're on your own. You go do some things and go get in trouble like I did and everything else. But I just remember, like, music was always there, and I still remember and still have first record I ever bought, first album I ever bought, and it was like gold. It was this sense of freedom. I think it was always 39 cents for my 45 or something like this, but it was the old, I've entered into this. And then fast forward, when I was in 6th and 7th grade, I used to play DJ during a break that was going on during my 7th grade.
Okay, hold on. So this is foreshadowing a little bit, because we're going to talk about that you actually do this for a living now. But you were doing it at 6th grade. Are you serious?
It was more. There was a break or at lunch, and the teacher said, if anybody wants to bring in some records,
gotcha,
we could play it during lunch and everything else. And a buddy of mine who was into music, and I kind of took the mantle of that. And I think it was maybe we both brought one, and it was long enough to have whatever. One song, something like that. And the ironic thing is, after I started DJing stuff and had the Facebook site and social media and everything else, and then actually when we did this podcast, someone who and again, the beauty of social media, someone who I went to elementary, middle school, my first girlfriend, said, I remember in 7th grade that you were actually doing DJ records. Like, what are you talking about? She said, in Mrs. Crane's class, and you used to bring a record during lunch. Like, I forgot all about that. And I remember bringing like a Beatles song, which I wasn't into the Beatles, but I brought it the Beatles. So she reminded me of that stuff that I completely forgot about. So hearing you and Sean the last couple of days, like, made me go back and think about some of those memories of the old. How am I going to answer that? Because I know you're going to ask that question and stuff. So I think that's where it started, like little like sprinkles of it. So.
Well, and I think that's kind of the beauty of doing this, and why I don't really prompt it with too many early questions is because
I mean, if I hadn't watched Sean's thing, you'd be catching me off guard, like, damn, I don't know what to say.
Well, but I mean, I think when you start thinking about things, like, not to circle too far back, but you mentioned going over to someone's house and them having a piece of furniture that is, it's almost like they had a room for music. Like they set aside this whole area to sit down and listen to music.
The way you and I do right now.
and I do that. I'll plug my headphones in and lay down on the bed and just listen to music. But it seems like it was a lot more part of people's lives back then than it really is now. that people put their headphones on and they're walking down the street and they're listening to music, but they don't set aside time to sit down and do like what you guys are doing with your podcast, or what was done back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, where they, they dedicated an entire almost room to it.
Right.
And people sat down.
And it's one of those where I think it became part of the makeup of people's lives back there, because, back in the day, 400,000 years ago, TV was still in its infancy. It had 3 channels, and it went off at midnight and then played Star Spangled Banner, and then you heard of
Well, that's foreign to kids nowadays.
Yeah. But it was equal to, hey, have you heard the new album? Have you heard the new blah blah blah? And I'm sure at the time I didn't appreciate it, like all kids would, but I remember it. I remember it enough that it made some kind of impression. And to this day, if anybody would say, well, what are your top 5 or your top 10 artists, stuff like this, I would say Ray Charles would certainly be in there and stuff. And I don't even know why. I like Ray Charles, but I usually wouldn't like choose to go and put him on. But every time I hear him, it's like, oh, I forgot how much I love Ray Charles. And then I'll do a deep dive and listen to it for 3 days straight, one of those things. So,
well,
that
answers the next question. I was going to say,
in there somewhere.
Yeah, have you done a deep dive on him? But you've just answered that.
Recently. Well, you know what happened is a couple 3 years ago. And I want to say it might have been through Amazon. Someone was offering. No, it was on iTunes. Someone was offering Ray Charles' entire catalog of songs that you could download for like $9.99 or something like this.
You're like, sold.
And it was literally, and I have it, on my some of my device stuff, and I want to say it was 300-400 songs.
Like, wow, that's a lot of songs for $10.
I'm
sold.
And so I did. That was my deep dive in. Had it been another artist, I don't know if I would have jumped at as much. But Ray Charles is just kind of always in the background there.
And kind of to relate what I said about having a room for it and actually sitting down and listening stuff, and the way my son listens now. I don't get the feeling Sean is young enough to listen like my son does, but my son will put a song on and skip to another artist immediately, and then skip to another artist immediately. And I have days like that where I want to mix, but I think we're also from that time frame where, because you sat down in a room and put a record on, it was too much of a hassle to get up and, find another record, put a different band on, then swap to another band and every song. So they would let the record run. And I don't know, maybe that got ingrained in our generation to listen to an album, to actually take a whole album in and absorb it.
And you were hearing the deeper cuts too.
Yeah,
exactly. So it wasn't just the hit and all in. And, the first song on the first side of the album was always the hook. Yeah, but the one that ended that first side was usually really good. In the middle of the second, like, why don't they play this more? So all that stuff. I remember going home from school some days, or even skipping school, the old, hey, there's a new album out. I just went and bought it, and I want to absorb it with no one around.
Yeah.
So when no one's home during the day, the headphones, the Koss headphones, which is like the size of a Volkswagen on the side of your head, put the album on and read the liner notes and all that stuff. So that was my generation. So you're right. I think we just looked at it differently. And it wasn't as available, so it was it was a big deal when you got it. So
right.
I think music being so available today is great, but I think it's so much,
Yeah, and I think that's that double-edged sword, like you said. All the old stuff is available too. Like the stuff that you grew up listening to, those B-sides and the second, the second song on the B-side, and you can still get every new album that's released, the minute it's released, and start listening to it. But I don't think a lot of those, we're going off a tangent, but who cares? I don't think a lot of musicians nowadays take that idea to heart. They don't have to worry about the side B. Or they don't have to worry about how songs are kind of interlinked with each other. Some of them do, but most of them don't. They're just, let's put out a single. Let's put out a supporting single and put 2 other songs out on a CD, and now we're done. And that's it. So I don't know. It just feels generic.
It definitely feels different than what we used to have. But, we used to look for that B-side just as much, because it was this is something that other people don't know. And maybe it's going to be something that other people, would like to hear somewhere down the road, or it was another one of the hits because they put 2 hits on it, and it's
or didn't know they were putting 2 hits on it.
no, and because they got popular, the DJs back in the day would flip it over on the radio stations and start playing the B-side, and all of a sudden they had another hit.
Yeah. So let's do that then. So let's go to that your amateur DJing days when you went into school and DJ'd. From there, did you? Sean did mention that you play trumpet. I'm just going to throw that out there. So, how did that fit into your life?
Like he had mentioned, 4th grade around here was the time, and my next door neighbor, who was my best friend in the world and everything else, and he and I were sitting in school during the day, and they come and they make a pitch deal, for $19.95, you too could play the, whatever, and however much it was going to be, and they were going to come to your house and everything, and again, we didn't have a lot. My mom was a single mom, and it was the old, I don't think I should even dare ask.
Right.
But when I did, she stepped up and said, yeah, I think you should. And we both, my neighbor and I, we both got trumpets.
Nice.
And he was 5th grade, I was 4th grade, and we joined the band. And it was one of those that, and I have this as an affliction, I think, where when I start something, I kind of like, even if I get tired of it, I just don't stop it. I just keep doing it. So even if I didn't like it, it was like, of course I'm in the band. Of course I'm in the band.
So is it a perfection thing or is it a comfort thing?
I think it's just, I don't know if it's either. I think it might just be familiarity. Just like,
okay. Yeah.
Well, it's just kind of the norm. So
we'll lean to comfort.
Yeah. I mean, and it's funny, so, elementary school and you guys had mentioned, hot crust buns and all that kind of stuff and everything. And, I stuck with it. I kind of, was known as one of the guys that was in the band, but, I don't think I lost too much of the coolness kind of thing because I was also an athlete and doing other things and getting to know other people and stuff. And so you kind of always, toggle back and forth with that. And then middle school, just continue it. And the cool thing about playing in the band in middle school is the high school marching band, which was performing at football games and all that kind of stuff, sucked everybody up from the 8th. I was in junior high. It wasn't middle school. It was 8th and 9th grade. From 8th and 9th grade up, so you were marching on Saturdays and being part of the high school band when you were 13 or 12.
Not high school, right?
Hanging out with seniors in high school.
Oh yeah,
and getting to know them, and it was the old hey, I mean, there was hazing and all that kind of stuff, as you can imagine. But it's also you're part of the band, you're part of us, and if anybody says anything to Jim, I'm going to kick your rear end, and because I'm going to protect you. It's like, okay, that sounds good, So in 8th grade, if you're part of that, you don't leave it. And I just stayed right on and still throughout high school.
Did you play in college too, or just high school?
My first year I did. I played in a jazz band and other things. In high school, it branched off. It was concert band, it was marching band, and it was jazz band. So it was different genres and stuff. And, you had to try out and all that. So, my friends, and I think my social strata was probably 30 to 40% band kids.
Oh, okay.
The other 60 were athletes and neighborhood kids and all that kind of thing too. Because I was, 3-sport athlete as well, like Sean and Katie was too. He didn't mention Katie. Katie was a phenomenal athlete in high school and did drama and played the clarinet and did dance and musical theater and stuff. Has a voice which none of us can sing. Sean can sing. I can't. And
he says he can sing. I'm waiting to hear his CD. So.
He can actually. He actually can. I gotta. I'll tell you more about his Kingston 530 days as well. But so it was kind of like Jim was the athlete that was in the band. He wasn't the band geek that also played sports. So it kind of always worked out. So it wasn't bad. Freshman year in college, I did a little, but then I think I just kind of lost interest and I was more into other types of music and I wasn't performing as much kind of thing.
So,
which is when I started, I did some radio DJ in college as well. So I kind of got it from that perspective instead of
we're still foreshadowing. We're going to come to that in just a second. But I got one more question. So it doesn't sound like you actually had, obviously with your father passing away so young, you probably didn't have too much of an influence there, but it doesn't feel like you had any musical influence on you. Like,
my mom,
uncles,
my
cousins?
mom was, no, not really. My mom, well, 2 people probably. And the interesting thing is I've had the chance to speak and thank the second person I'm going to tell you about, who's my brother-in-law's brother.
Okay.
my mom was very into music and
Okay.
was a tremendous dancer. I will
Oh,
say, and this is, and she was of the generation where they would go to the supper clubs and dance all night and all that. I
yeah.
mean, it wasn't the Glenn Miller thing. It was like just past it. It was more the Sinatra era kind of thing. And she was always a great dancer. So my sister, who was actually became a dance teacher and tap and ballet and all that kind of stuff. But my sister, my brother, who's older, and myself, we can all. This sounds terrible and self-serving. Like, we can all dance like hell. Like we're
That's
unbelievably good
awesome.
dancers, which is so weird.
Has that ever
Um,
come in handy? Again, foreshadowing. Has
always.
that ever come in handy in your actual like DJing for weddings and stuff? Have you ever had to like step
Yeah,
in
nah,
and
yeah. I was never. I always tried to not be that guy as a
I
DJ.
figured.
Who was not out there leading the guy. And but I like to feel like I think I have a really good sense of rhythm,
Okay.
as do Sean,
Yeah.
and Katie, especially. Katie can dance unbelievably. So a lot of times, if a song comes on at a wedding we're at or something like this, we'll just look at each other from the other side of the room and just like run up on the dance floor and we'll do like swing dance together just because we can.
That's
It's weird.
awesome.
And my wife, who loves music, who is crazy enthusiastic about music, but doesn't dance as much stuff, like comes along for the ride and just like humors me because anywhere we're going, it's like we could break into dancing,
That's
out of
funny.
nowhere. It's like, oh, Jim, stop it, here we go, kind of thing. So yeah, so I think you got that from my mother. My mother actually had this really funny thing that my sister and my brother and I and my wife as well always kind of make fun of. She always used to bite her lower lip and do the twist.
The
Yeah,
chubby
right.
checkers
Right.
twist.
And it was like, and
That's
she would
awesome.
like lean back. I know this isn't gonna be good for the audio, but for the video, we see it. But she would like
That is
lean
great.
way back and just come
That
back,
is
and she was
great.
very very like she was a cool dancer that way. Like you looked at us like she's kind of got some cool in her kind of thing. And fast forward, foreshadowing, Sean, when he danced with my wife at his wedding, played a song by Bruce Springsteen called "The Wish," which I don't know if you've ever heard, but if you ever
Yep.
get a chance to listen to it, the it's not an easy song to dance to, but the words were so appropriate for the relationship that the great and unbelievable relationship that he has and had. And it still has with my wife. And there's a song, there's a part in the song, a lyric in the song that says, um, pulling me up off the couch to dance the twist for my uncles and aunts. And it was like, that's my mother.
Wow.
It's just like,
I don't think I'd put two and two together on that. I forgot that line was in there. That's
yeah,
craziness.
pulling me up off the couch to do the twist for my uncle, my aunts, and in Matador pants or something like this, to do the twist with my uncle or something with
Wow.
my. And it's like, that's exactly who my mother was. So we always kind of had music that way. Musical instruments stuff, probably not so much. I don't know what my dad was musically or anything like that, because I
Yeah.
really didn't know him all that well,
Yeah.
unfortunately. But my mother, I mean, driving the car, if we go, there was always music that way. So I think it was kind of always being sprinkled into my brain a little that way. I'm sorry, that
So,
was a long-winded answer. I
oh no,
apologize.
that's what the answers are for on this show. But you mentioned you actually DJed in high school too, and I'll just get the white elephant out. You're a professional DJ still, right? I mean, you haven't
No,
retired or stopped doing it.
I retired a couple years ago.
Okay, so
Yeah,
you were a professional DJ for a very long time, but you also did this in high school. So what time?
in college, not in high school, in
I'm sorry,
college.
college. So what?
Yep.
Not to date either one of us, but what kind of time frame are we looking at that point?
I graduated bachelor's 79 and did it 79, 80, 81 in the college radio station.
So early rock, early
Yeah.
hard rock,
Oh, no,
even the hair
no. It's
bands.
actually I was doing some early 80s stuff, but it was the oldies show with Jimmy O.
Oh, so you were playing 550s and stuff.
Oh, playing some oldies and stuff, but then sprinkling some new stuff too, some Springsteen and all the other kind of stuff that was coming out at the time. So
Did you get choices on what to play?
yeah, yeah.
You,
It was pretty freeform, and it was there wasn't a lot of direction. It was it was a small station that was just local. It wasn't really pumping out the all over the airways
yeah.
in the area. I think it was in the 5 mile radius or something like this. But I had a show regularly that a buddy of mine who was a communications major said, "Hey, we have some openings. Is anybody?" It's like, yeah, I'll try it. And that itself opened up the door for me to meet some other guys in my other part-time job that said, "Hey, you do this on the radio. Why don't you do it mobile? You can make some money." It's like, I could never do that. There's no way. And he kind of set me up and helped me with some equipment and got me started. And
so
35 years later, I was doing DJing every weekend.
So let me see if I remember. Cassettes were 76 or 79.
Oh, I started with 45s.
Oh, so that's what I was going to ask. So you actually started with, wow. So did you have two discs where you were spinning one into the next, or were you just, okay. So, wow.
So two Technics SL 1200s, which were the industry standard. You have to have those. And you get the next song on, and you have your headphones. Well, one's out playing. You have your headphones on. Turn the other one, and you crank it half a turn to make up for the. And then you mix it, and you back and forth, and you do that for 4.5, 5 hours. Yeah.
So okay.
That started with 45s, which I had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of 45s that I did sell off. I kept some of my own, but yeah.
So how did you get that big of a library up to that point? Where you had just started picking up as you went along, or
that was, and please understand, like, all this time as I'm graduating college and going out to the world, like, I have a regular job. And as a teacher, I was a guidance counselor.
Wow.
High school guidance counselor. So every teacher needed to have a second job, especially because in the summers you don't get paid.
Yeah, right.
There's no paychecks coming in, so you have to do something else. So I was never good at painting houses. So I figured, what do I do? So the DJing thing kind of filled in for that. But in between that time, I also worked at a record store. I worked actually over the course of a 10-year span. I worked at 2 different record stores up in Salem, New Hampshire, and one ended up being one of my really close friends, who has since passed away, unfortunately, Mike Beam. And I didn't take a paycheck home often. Let's just put it that way. But I got a killer DJ 45 selection and killer albums and 12-inch discs and everything else, which I still have. I have a great record collection, not because I was wealthy or looking forward that I was going to have all this kind of stuff. It's just like, I never got paid. It's just like, I'm going to put this behind the counter. I like that. I'm going to put this behind the counter. All right, Jim, here you go. You owe me $10 this week for working 20 hours. Like, okay, Mikey. So it was that. So it was feeding the DJ work, but also just feeding my love of, and Mike and other people would also come in and say, "Hey, have you heard of this band? Give it a listen." And you like it enough, and all of a sudden I'm taking home an album by Spiral Gyra or something like this, so like this crazy stuff that I never would have had in my life, which I think also kind of helped explode my view of different types of music at the time. So the music thing happened because a lot of it was working in the 2 record stores that I
in the industries, right? So that's a good transition though. So I'm going to go deep here. So again, we're going to talk about some DJ stories here. So I got to hear some of these. I've been dying ever since I was on your guys' show. I got to hear some of these DJ stories.
And it's funny. A lot of people are really curious about what's it like behind the table and do it. It's like, and I just think I don't think it's that interesting, but there's a lot of curiosity about that. So yeah, I'm happy to answer that.
You need to write a book, I guess. But you just mentioned something interesting though, as a guidance counselor. I love creating a Music Musing podcast. It lets me see how music affects people in different ways. We're always looking for interesting guests, so if you know someone in the music industry or someone who really has a great music-related story, reach out to us at musicmusingfeedback@gmail.com. This podcast is produced out of my pocket, so if you want to help with that process, we also have a Patreon at patreon.com/musicmusing. You can join for as little as $1 a month, and we have some cool behind-the-scenes pictures and stories, and even a sticker. You could even co-host a show idea that you have rolling around in your head. And lastly, please leave us a great review on whatever platform you listen to your podcasts on. It helps us reach out to more people who may enjoy these conversations. Thank you for your time, and back to the Music Musing podcast. So, did you have professional schooling for that, or is that just kind of something you fell into? And you don't have to get too deep. As a guidance counselor?
Master's degree in counseling.
Okay, so...
Yeah, so bachelor's degree in psychology, master's degree and then from there, middle school, high school, middle school, high school. So 6 different schools, 35-year career as a high school guidance counselor. And all the
So
time on
you're
weekends working DJ work too. So
so
which oftentimes,
you've never had two jobs or never not have two jobs for
yeah,
the most
pretty
part.
much. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. But
Yep.
it ties in perfectly to what I'm about to say. So you help people. You help people with issues and you get in tune with people.
Mhm.
And my assumption, and I'm probably clearing this up for myself, but you can clear it up too. But my assumption is that's what makes it easier for you to pick a song for the moment that you're looking
Yeah.
at. Because
Oh,
when you're
without question.
DJing, how many different things have you done? A wedding, birthday party, bar
Yep.
mitzvah? Have you kind
Yep.
of done the gamut?
Funeral.
so
Yep.
so
Divorce parties. Yep.
you're looking around at what people are doing. And obviously, with weddings, you're going to know that they're going to let you know, hey, we're cutting the cake, or hey, we're doing this dance. And you know that when those are coming up. How often, with the knowledge that you have being, kind of a counselor and kind of realizing what people, feeling people out, how often do you audible out of, or do you even make a list before you get there?
Every time, every day it was. What I would do is, like for a typical function, especially a wedding, is always meet with the bride and groom and get a flavor of what they want.
Okay.
And some couples would say, we want you to play, here's a list of songs. We want you to play every one of these songs. And others would like, Jim, I've seen you before. I trust your judgment. Here's some of the genres and some of the style stuff, but we don't want to handcuff you. You do your own thing. And it's both of those and everything in between,
Okay.
So I'd walk into a function with the nuts and bolts in place, in the first dance and parents' dances and last dance and different things that I know I definitely had to check off the list as you were going through. But not only did you have to know like when the cutting of the cake was, but I was the one running it. So I was the one driving that. I was like the coordinator as well. So I'd work with the hall, say, okay, after this next song, I'm going to get the bride and groom and say, we're going to do this. And, can you make sure the cake's there? And is the knife there and everything else? And then after that, go talk to the bride and groom and say, all right after the song, I want to make sure, or are you ready to do this? Okay. So right after this, so it was a lot of that coordination stuff. So it was also working with people and knowing when not to interrupt the people running the hall because they had to get their meal at the right time, or the bride was dancing with her uncle who was so important to her, so you don't want to interrupt that. So it's all that kind of stuff. Musically, and this is always my hook near the tail, and I sound like an old fart with this, but near the tail end of my DJ career, this was the hook that drove me crazy. Is I'd have my standards. You start off, with whatever, and a lot of times you go in sets of 2s and 3s. So maybe a slow song to start off, maybe one more if it's going real well, and then you kick it in like something that's going to like drive them crazy. Or you start off with something really, really big if it's going to be that crowd. Wear them out for 3 or 4 songs, and then kind of calm it down, let everybody catch a breath, get a drink, and everything. Then you come back with another one or 2 songs. So it was like 2s and 3s, back and forth, and you build it. And by the third or fourth hour, now you can play stuff that hopefully everybody has been either dancing or drinking, having a good time, and you don't have to kind of be as specific. You can't play some of the really cool cutting edge stuff early because Aunt Martha from Poughkeepsie is not going to like that. She's going to leave, So that it's that kind of psychology. But then you have to read the crowd. I mean, and you have to also not have an ego of look, this isn't going to work. And if I do this one more time, I'm going to lose the crowd. So let me kind of pull away from this and go in a different direction. That guy over there is giving me the eyeball because he asked for a song about 10 minutes ago. Let me squeeze his in. And then you just kind of go with it. What drives me crazy in some of the ways that DJs were doing it in recent years before I finished is literally you could download everything on your laptop and hit play. Hit play. And sometimes it looks like guys are up there checking their emails and everything else, but like the reality is they're probably not freestyling it as much as I would do. My last 3 to 5 years, I actually abandoned my laptop. I didn't want to use it anymore.
Nice.
So I got rid of it, went back to CDs, and I had 4
older iPods,
160 gig
solid state.
which had like 80,000 songs on it and everything else.
Okay.
This is my music library. So the quality of sound on this and with CDs, which was so superior to when they take all the bits out when they put it on a computer, made a difference to me, because I was always worried about the quality of the sound as much as playing the music stuff and the bass and everything else. So I just thought it was a better show. It kept me engaged more and let me engage more with the crowd, to look over the table and talk with people and see people and smile and everything and high five them and everything, while they're having a good time, instead of looking like I'm checking my email. And there are some guys that they were literally every 8th song, no matter what function they were playing, is the same thing, whether people liked it or not. Now, they might have had a good formula, and it might have worked at most function stuff, but they weren't working it. They were collecting a paycheck and walking away, and not reading the crowd and not having the psychology side of it too.
So not putting somebody down that does
no,
that.
No, it's just a different style.
But
a different style.
Well, I would put it
like
down, but you don't have to. You can claim that you're not, but I'm going to. But for me, that's the difference between somebody who really cares about the music itself and somebody who just really more cares about getting the people onto the next thing. And you mentioned,
and that was always my hook of when I was trying to book, like, okay, just want you to know, I'm a music guy. I'm not a DJ.
Yeah,
please understand.
You go.
Please understand what that means. And it was a bit of a sales pitch and everything else, but I would always try to make sure that I made that distinction. And I always found it. I mean, and I'm sure there's maybe some of the questions you had later on, but there were some songs I never wanted to play, and it was like a success if I didn't play these songs. That
is actually one of the songs, or one of the questions up by 3 at the end. So I'm gonna save it, but
and then there are other ones that if I can play something that's going to be different, that if you're at a wedding, now you're a music guy, you're at a wedding, and all of a sudden during dinner or during cocktail hour, all of a sudden this guy whips out a song that you never would have heard at a wedding, and you're on the other side of the hall. It's like, oh, I don't think anybody would ever play us at a wedding. I'm going to watch this guy. This could work. I've got you. And I want that. And then if I can kind of mix in something that's going to be different, just so people walk away and say, he played different music than what we hear at every wedding. Because, every 25-year-old goes to 60 weddings in those 2 or 3 years because you're on that wedding.
Exactly.
Stuff. But if I can do something different, they're going to remember that. And as a result, I'm going to be hired again. And it was all about repeat business as well.
So speaking of repeat business, did you see a lot of the same people at weddings, like in a chain? So you would see the same. That's so crazy. I hadn't really thought about that dynamic of it yet.
Some of those guys who might do a good job, and again, not casting any aspersions to them, but they might have done a good job, but they're going to get hired again. And in their mind, they killed it that night, and people were dancing and everything else. But that they have the personal connection with the people, and people are going to come on up, and some will. I used to leave my business cards on the table and they would take it. But, a lot of the next job is always from referral.
Right.
Hey, my aunt's
good point.
Married, blah, blah, blah. And if they like you, you're going to work. And if the halls like you, you're going to be on their list and you're going to get recommended first. So you're going to get work.
Oh, right.
So
on their side of it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's all that. And the florists and the photographers and all these people. So it's a really small community that if you work it the right way and you treat people with respect and, you let people know that, like, I don't have the ego where I'm the star and, excuse me, you have to take a step, get out of my way, photographer, stuff like this. Like if you don't kind of fall into that and don't get caught up in the old, I'm the DJ star here. It was a pretty successful gig,
But it still has to
again, as a secondary thing. I don't think I would have done it full time, but as a secondary thing.
It still has to come back though to your love of music. It still has to come back to the fact that you spent 30, 40 years just listening to a lot of stuff. And like, did anybody ever come up and compliment you on, hey, I've never heard that song, that's amazing? Or hey, I saw you at another wedding and this is, you just do, your stuff really well. So you had people come, that's awesome. So it pays dividends, I guess, at that point.
But the reality of that is the ones you remember is those handful of times where, like, oh, I sucked tonight. Just didn't work and everything. And you have to keep in mind that not everybody is a music person and cares about music, so they may not dance or it may not be my fault. But those are the ones you remember because, if I've done 998 weddings, but 2 of them were like, oh, they just, those are remembers because you ones you remember because you're like, oh, I could have, and I should have, whatever. But they're few and far between. Lately.
That feeling right there And I wish I almost wish we'd have done you and Sean at the same time. That feeling right there is what I would get at one of our local shows that we would play as a band. I would go, man, I played every note wrong tonight. When I had to sing back up, I was off key. Everything was wrong, but I could have played 50 shows in the last 30 days and not had missed a beat. But I'm going to remember that one because I missed 3 notes or didn't play the solo when I was supposed to play the solo. Go ahead.
Because you care about the music.
Yep, because I care about the music.
Right. It wasn't
that's
just
what we're here for.
Check-off gig. Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And so to circle back to that then, so you've put this whole collection of 45s together.
Yep.
You transition to, do you go to cassette first or you go straight to CD?
Oh no, I had cassettes because there were also cassette singles back then too.
God, forgot about those.
Yeah. So now, now on my rig, I have 2 turntables. I have a cassette player. I have another cassette player, and I have my mixer and my 2 speakers on the side. So now it's growing. And a microphone. Yeah.
So you got a lot of. So now carrying that little 800 song iPod's that nice little gig for you at this point.
Right. Because remember, before iPods and CDs and everything else, like if there's a song that you need, you got to go find it. I had to buy the 45. I had to buy the cassette single. I had to have it because just in case, Uncle Bob wanted it. Yes, I have that for you. Then you're a hero. No, I don't have that. Well, then you're a loser, kind of thing. So I always overcompensated with bringing way too much music, but knowing, because really, when you think about it, in any particular gig, you're probably playing at 2 to 3, 4 minutes per, maybe 30 songs, maybe 40 songs. But I had hundreds and hundreds to choose from. There were ones that you went with that were there all the time, but it was always nice to have that when someone asked, or if it was something that's inappropriate, it's like, yeah, no, sorry, I don't have that. When it's sitting behind me, but it's not going to work.
When you know it.
Well, what else can I get for you? Because I'm sorry I don't have it.
How about the same band, different song?
That's right.
So that actually will bring up one of my questions that I had set aside that I actually want to ask during. And you're doing this for a living. You're doing this. How were you doing it every weekend? I mean, we're looking at every weekend or?
Yeah, there were some times when it was going really, really well. Again, this is back in the day when there was drinking a lot of the functions. There wasn't much issues with that. They were still smoking at functions. I mean, literally I have to come home and get undressed in the garage because everything stunk so bad.
Smoke.
And the equipment smelled as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it was more of that kind of stuff before things started to change. But there were times, especially around the holidays, where and later on I backed it off just because I couldn't and didn't want to do it this much. But I was like Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Wow. So not just every weekend, but like 4 days in a row.
Because there's two time slots on a Saturday.
Yeah.
There's a day wedding and then there's a night wedding or a function. So you might do a wedding during the day and do a
holy moly
Halloween party in the night or something like this. And, getting home at 2:00 in the morning and going and doing a birthday party on Sunday. Yeah. I mean, I was also young and stupid and you needed the money. So,
well, and we got energy when you're that young, don't you?
Right.
So to that, you're putting together, you mentioned you're putting together lists for the most part, but you're still swapping in and out, but you're taking some research into it. You're actually, thinking about things and thinking about where to put songs.
Yeah. But all the time.
How do you separate that feeling and wanting to sit down by yourself with a new album and absorb it? I mean, how do you subtract your, oh my gosh, maybe I could use this for the next show, or oh my gosh, maybe I could use this for the show down the road.
I'm so glad you asked that because, and I think I might have said this on our podcast a few times. I know people have heard me say this at some point. While I was kind of really engaged in the quote unquote being a DJ, I kind of lost my love for music because now it's a gig, now it's a job. And I was going. It was also a time when we were going to a lot of live shows. We had some friends who were in bands, and we used to follow them all around the Boston area and see them all the time and stuff. So we were doing that kind of stuff, but I wasn't growing and learning about new music. I had my handful of things that I liked and followed, and I always get the new ones of those particular bands. But I would refer to like, oh, that's a DJ song. Oh, so change that song on the radio. That's a DJ song. And still to this day, there were certain songs that DJ songs that I cringe at. But then when I stopped it, when I started to back off in latter years, and the last 10 years before I retired, I started doing it less. I mean, every time you hear a song, to answer one of your questions, every time you hear a song, it was like, I'd like to try to play that. So I'm going out and buying that, or I'm downloading it because I want to have that. I want to try to do this as the next one. So there was always that. There was always another song to get. But during the latter end of the career, I started to enjoy music again. And then when I stopped, I started to love music again and realized how much I was missing it, because it was a job, and it was not still fun, but the stresses of it near the end of the if I screw up here, I could ruin someone's wedding, and I don't want to do that, especially with the technology being what it is. I've had horror stories of guys tell me that in the middle of the first dance, or dance with, the father who's just came out of the hospital and, dancing with his daughter, and, he may die next week and stuff. And all of a sudden the computer crashes in the middle of it. Like,
no.
And that would send me over the edge stuff. So I got nervous. I know Sean talked about how I was anxious. I was always nervous at a wedding because I never want to screw up.
Yeah.
So at some point it's like, what am I doing? I'm not, it's not as fun anymore, and I'm not enjoying the music and stuff. So I needed to kind of back away from it, back away. So I left it about three years ago. Ironically, my last wedding that I did was for one of Sean's bandmates.
Yeah.
Ex-bandmates, because they had broken up at the point.
Yeah.
In Kingston 530, this guy Sully, who was the nicest guy, him and Remy, they were the nicest people. And it was such a good final gig. And I had an inkling, because I had one more scheduled, but they would talk about moving us or rescheduling or canceling or something. But I was thinking, like, I think this is going to be my last one. So I asked my wife to come. Sean was there. And I was thinking, like, I want to go out big. And it was a killer wedding. But
nice.
There was some tech issues that I was worried about, and my iPod almost crapped out on me. So it was like, okay, I need to be done.
I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah. So it became less fun that way as well. But then when and especially when Sean said, like, let's do this podcast, like, my love of music just exploded back again.
That's what I was going to say. So the podcast kind of brought you back.
It did.
Kind of reeled you back into what you're doing. So, well, let's get on Sean a little bit. You said you had a couple stories to tell about his band, or his your influence on him and his band. And
well, I don't know if I had I don't think I had any influence on him and all band wise, but when you asking the questions about, what was it like, when you were thinking how you chose cool versus the music end of it in high school and stuff. He did go to a small high school, but he was also like a star athlete, especially his senior year. He was like athlete of the year. He had two state championships.
Yeah, he omitted that part.
Yeah. He was in the state of New Hampshire in the school class, which was the Class M or whatever. He was a high jump champion, state champ, and record holder and everything else. And his basketball team won, with which he was a starter, won the state championship. Now, basketball in these two towns is like Hoosiers.
Oh yeah.
On a Tuesday night,
rivalries and stuff.
In this kind of weather we have, which it's I think it's 3 below right now. Like, the gym will be filled with 400 rabid fans going crazy, and so it's big that way. So he was strong athletics, but right after they won the championship in basketball, the next day there was a concert in the afternoon. It was like a pops concert where they set up in a gym with tables and everything, and he performed with one of the bands he was in, the rock band, as well as the concert band. So he downplayed it too, but he was involved heavily on both sides of that.
Boy, the story really comes out.
Well, yeah, but he's not one. I mean, that's also the proud parents kind of thing.
Yeah, it is. We'll take it.
He wouldn't be one to kind of, and he even is going to kill me probably for saying that kind of stuff, but he's not one to kind of, tout his own. But because of that, and also because there was so many nice kids in his high school, those lines were always blurred. There was never a defined, you're this, you're that, or you don't belong here or whatever. So music was a big part of it, and the basketball team and some of the other kids would come to the concerts because Sean was there, and some of their other buddies and their brothers were there. Stuff.
Crossovers,
so it did. Yeah, it was nice. It was nice that way.
So
and then with his band, he didn't tell you this either. When they were doing that
I'm getting good stories. He's gonna hate you. He's gonna hate you so much.
He is. He already does, I'm sure. So when they were doing that big competition, and they got deemed the winner of the Boston chapter. what happened after that is it went around for all the major cities in the country, and then
Yeah.
it was a vote via phone calls, social media, et cetera,
Yeah.
well. Boston is such, as you know, is such a huge music area
Yes.
that
Yes.
it's so saturated with all these other bands and all these other opportunities with music and everything else. And some of the other parts of the country didn't have that kind of competition. So they put all their, like the mayor, and it put all their energies into voting for all these different bands.
Oh
So
yeah.
it became a little bit of that. Like luckily they were so good. The band was very, very good, and they were really good guys. They were good
Yeah.
people. So
Yeah.
they made relationships and friendships with all these people that they were in competition with, and then went on to play with them afterwards and everything else. So, and I think they came in second or third, from, I think the guys from Buffalo did it, but they became really close with the guys from Buffalo.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but in the judging panel was local prominent musicians. So Ernie Bach
Okay.
Jr., who we mentioned, who was he was also big into the music scene and stuff. Barry Goudreau from Boston
Was on the panel.
was the judge, yeah, and
Okay.
selected Sean's band.
Yeah.
Lizzie Borden and the Axes, which was a hardcore all girl punk from the '70s, was on the so it was that.
Wow.
So it wasn't just like, oh, we won Boston. Like we won Boston with like guys from
real musicians judging. Yeah.
And the people who came in second in the Boston competition, who they beat, it was a band called the Blue Pages. Well, the Blue Pages were convinced and they were good. They were really good. They were good visually. They had good sound. They were really interesting and everything else. And it was really close. And everybody was thinking it's going to be going either way. Well, the Blue Pages, about 6 months after that, went and moved from Boston, because they were a Berkeley-based band.
Yeah.
And they moved to Brooklyn. They called themselves American Authors.
Why does that sound familiar?
This is going to be the best day of my life.
Oh my gosh, are you serious?
Yeah.
So right. He didn't. I asked him that question. He didn't remember that, but that's a pretty big accomplishment for a band like that.
And they went on and had some, "Go Big or Go Home," I think is one of the songs. I just heard it the other day on the Patriots. It's like, so like they have had some pretty major success.
That's one of those songs I love to hate, or hate to love. I can't remember which one, but it's one of those ones where I put on and I'm like, I shouldn't like this song, but I do. It's so
best day of my life.
Yeah, that's the one.
I would end some weddings with that too, as I was saying goodnight and everybody and stuff, drive home and everything else, just because it was a fun song to kind of have people walk out to. So it's good. So it was pretty prominent, when they did that, and they were 2 cities away from opening for McCartney and Hard Rock Calling.
I couldn't imagine. I don't know if you've watched the Beatles movie on Apple Plus lately, but
I did. I was going to ask you if you've seen it. It's great.
It is changed. So I don't need my story. Well, I'll tell a short part of it. Obviously, I was in a local band as well, but I've got out of it. I still play guitar. I still played for the last. I've played since I stopped, but I just started writing music again because of that movie. I just really sat down and started writing and picking up my guitar and writing stuff for me instead of just playing cover stuff. And I can't push that enough. I can't push that show enough.
Really good.
It is life-changing to see somebody in 1968 or 69, whatever it was, when they were sitting down recording that stuff, and to see them work together and not work together. Basically, as musicians clash, but still come together and make something amazing. Just
right.
Groundbreaking stuff.
To be in the studio, kind of like, having an eye on that, which is, you never get a chance to do something like that, especially someone prominent like the Beatles.
I want to see that with every band at this point after that, after watching that video.
And I'll take you one step further, because I was never, and this is sacrilege, and the guy I talked to you about, who owned the record store, is rolling over his grave whenever I say this, because we always argue about it. He was a Beatles nut. I was never a Beatles guy.
I'm the same thing. I'm the same exact way.
I was a Beach Boys guy. I was Rolling Stones and everything else. But Beatles, like, they're pretty good and everything. I like them more in the Abbey Road and the Let
Yeah,
It
yeah,
Be
the
stuff.
earlier, the Abbey Road and Sergeant Pepper's. I like the Sergeant Pepper concept album.
Yeah.
That stuff was kind of fun to listen to.
So, and then watching that the 3 episodes. First off, I think they could have done it in an episode, in maybe 1.5 instead of 3. I think it was okay. We get it that you guys are smoking a lot and you keep going over these other songs for 10 minutes. Like you could have done that in 1 minute. Like so
exactly.
I think it was a little
well,
overdone.
that's
Except
Peter
the third-
Jackson.
Right. Except the 3rd episode, which I thought could have gone on forever because I love the whole dynamics of them getting ready for the concert and everything else. That was so good. But
yeah,
that turned me on to being a Beatles guy.
I would have liked to have seen more of the concert at that point. You know, they really cut that part short or didn't put enough video in there for me from that. But I agree. I actually, what got me prompted into starting writing again is I have my acoustic on the wall, and after that, watching those videos, I pulled it down and started learning Across the Universe. I'm like, this song can't be that hard to play.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, it's so easy. And I could sing it. It's in my key. So, okay. So let me circle back around. So I usually ask something. No, again, this is totally tangent. This is the whole reason I put this podcast together. But I skipped over something early in your music influences and stuff. I usually ask if you have a happy and a sad or angry connection with a song. Like if some part of your life, like you've had something really happy and it's related to a song, or a song's playing while something is happy happening. Do you have any of those connections with any type of events in your life that are related to that?
Oh, it's so hard to say because
and you've listened to a lot of music.
Yeah, and music is such a soundtrack of everything we've done.
Yeah, and if it's not, I mean, if there's no point, that's we can skip over that. It's just something I usually ask because some people have that defining moment. Like for me, it is, I Remember You by Skid Row. There's a moment where I can remember sitting on my porch on my old house the last time we visited my hometown, and that the rain coming down and that song playing and me feeling nostalgic. I have that feeling, and some people have that. Some people don't. Some people, like you said, maybe walking out the door is your soundtrack. I mean, you've got a soundtrack playing in your head for what you're walking out the door. Sometimes.
That is true. I would say, and I'm a Springsteen nut, I'm one of the guys that have seen him 80, 90 times and and have a million different things, in bootlegs and everything else. But I guess one of the defining factors of me loving not only Springsteen music, but loving live music was during, which I like the song. I don't know if I love it as much as some of the fanatics out there, which is probably going to get me hate mail from other people, but the song Jungle Land from Born to Run.
Yeah.
We had the tickets and I can't remember anything else about the concert except this moment where we had tickets on the side of the stage, so we kind of see it from a different perspective. But there was a point during the sax solo near the end where Clarence is just wailing away within a completely dark stage, pretty close to us, with one white spotlight on him. Springsteen climbs up on Roy Bittan's piano and has a spot on him, and then right after, during when he's doing a solo, there's a part where like he's doing a fist pumping, and the image of him up there and Clarence is just, to this day, is just, and I'm getting goosebumps now. Yeah,
it sticks. Like, that's funny.
That's why people come and love, and it might have been one of the first Springsteen shows I went to. I can't even remember that, but it was one of those kind of things that always always sticks with me. And then a song that's sad, I can't listen to Tears in Heaven by Clapton. We had a daughter who died.
Oh, so on personal connection too.
Yeah, the way home from the hospital, as we were getting driven home by my sister-in-law or somebody, and it was a really tense thing. Nancy was still in the hospital, and we had just lost the baby. She was stillborn. That song comes on, and it's like, oh my God, and to this day, that's what reminds me of that. So it's like,
so that's a no play.
Yeah,
well, that kind of
sometimes and DJing would be like, hey, can you play this song?
That's what I was just going to say.
I have it. Yeah.
So actually that'll tie into my I do these three quick questions at the end, just to kind of prompt you and just kind of throw you off and have you jump into a spontaneous question. And that's kind of that's sort of an answer to the first one, but not, because now I know why. But songs you never play at a wedding. Just a song that you can think of off the top of your head that you never play at a wedding that's not Tears in Heaven, because we just talked about that one.
Yeah. Like a Virgin.
Fantastic.
Great dance song.
You nailed it. Okay, that's one out of the way. Have you ever DJ'd some type of themed party, like completely themed. Oh, okay. So can you one stick out? Uh-oh. And you could say what you want. This is not kid safe, so spill it. Or if you don't want to say it, think of another one.
No. Tons of, and I had forgotten about it till you just asked the question. Tons of Halloween parties.
Okay, yeah.
Various levels of alcohol consumed, everything else.
Yeah.
Where in the middle of functions, like literally costumes come off and nakedness on the dance floor.
Oh,
that I don't think I caused, but just they were having a good time.
You might have bumped them a little bit. Who knows?
Yeah. The other two functions, my most favorite ever that I did was 1999 going to 2000 because we thought the world was going to end.
Yeah.
Everybody had a New Year's Eve party, which was a big in the industry. It's a big night. You get paid double. It's a tough night because everybody pays a lot more money and feels like they're more entitled and everything else. Yeah, so it's a hard night to play. But 99 to 2000, I had Sean and Katie and Nancy come down so we could all be together. It's just in case the world blew up together, but also just to celebrate it. And I was playing in a hall locally. I got hired by the hall to do it. They had their own party, and there was 500 people in the front room, and there were 400 people in the back room, hosted by another DJ. But at 11:15, 11:30, they shut that down, and everyone came in. So I'm playing to 1,000 people everywhere, and it's rocking like crazy. And I'm thinking, like, I got to do something special. So I've always wanted to play. So New Year's Eve, the last song just before, and you always play, Last Dance by Donna Summer.
Okay, yeah.
And at 12 o'clock, you played Old Lang Syne, all that kind of stuff. So
right?
I don't want to do that this year, but I want to do something different. So, of course, you play Prince's 1999.
1999? Yeah,
place is going crazy because I've been waiting to play that for 20 years, because I love Prince. I love funk music, and I love his stuff. But then the first song, and this is like on when I die, if there's going to be a trivia thing at my wedding, at my funeral, it'll be what song did he play first in the year 2000 after New Year's Eve, and it was Imagine. It was Imagine.
Really, by Lennon.
Yeah, and then I went into Old Lang Syne. So
yeah. What a beautiful song, though.
Yeah,
wow,
yeah,
classic.
And then slow, got everybody dancing and all that stuff, and then you have to play Old Lang Syne. And then you kicked in for another 2 hours, just went crazy dancing and everything else. It was a party.
Is that the same? I'm tapping on the table. Is that the same beat per minute?
Might be.
Imagine an Auld Lang Syne.
It might be. Yeah.
Oh my gosh! I'm about to go check this out.
And the funny thing is, when you listen to Rockin' New Year's Eve and everything in New York City, I guess they do that. They play Imagine, and they play America by Ray Charles after Old Lang Syne in Times Square, and then they shut it all down and clean it up and kick everybody else. So, but Imagine is part of that too, which I didn't even know at the time, but I just figured that first song has to be something special, and that was a good one. Yeah, and I always figured that. And again, I'm not a Beatles guy, but I love that song.
Last question, and I'll even let you expound on this one if you want.
Oh, wait, no, one more.
Oh, sure.
The most memorable and funkiest thing, I played a gathering down at the Cape Cod.
Okay.
It was, I think, 400 or 500 people, and it was a convention for Little People of America.
Really? How many people were there?
400 easy. And
really?
of varying heights. Not everybody was little people, but they were married to full size spouses and everything else. But it was a nightmare because people would show up in wheelchairs and think like, they're not going to dance. What am I going to do? But a lot of times, what happened is that's the way that they would transport, or but then they'd jump out of their wheelchair and dance like crazy and come out. I had so many compliments, met so many nice people. They were the nicest people I've ever probably DJ'd for ever, and had the most fun at that. But it was one of those that everybody who I told, like, yeah, I'm going down and playing this convention. I don't even know how he got the gig. Everybody's like, oh, can I come help you? I can't wait. Are you going to play Randy Newman? Are you going to play? It's like, no, I'm not going to do it. It was one of my best gigs.
I could have guessed 100 different ones and never even come close to that being one of the ones. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, and that's why I started laughing. Like, I forgot all about that until you said it,
so
yeah.
last one, and I'll let you
Yeah.
expound if you want to. We got plenty of time. CD, tape, digital, vinyl. What's the best? And not for DJing. I'm talking about for you, and why.
Well, I probably should say, vinyl because I'm supposed to and everything else, but I get lazy too. I still have my turntable over here. I still have my 8-track player over here and stuff.
I was going to throw 8-track in, but I wasn't sure that was because I've heard 8-tracks and they don't, the interruption in the middle of a song. Oh man, you've got like a whole layout. Check it out. Yes. 8-tracks always bothered me because it'd flip in the middle of a song sometimes.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, a lot of CDs.
Yeah. So I would say probably CDs. Quality of the sound. What happened is, I have a really big vinyl collection.
Yeah.
But then when CDs came out, I duplicated it.
Yeah.
Plus anything I would buy was a tax deduction.
Oh, right.
For my DJ work, like, you're really going to use that REM? Like, I might need it someday. So I would say that's probably my go-to. Although, I have to say, sitting here working on any given day, I'm always on Spotify and I'm always on Pandora. So, I always want to try to learn some other new music as well.
Do you feel it robs the people like us of that nuances and cracks and pops and hisses and
I don't think I'm a purist that way. The funny thing is that when I hear a song that I remember growing up with and having now the whole thing with that and people diss CDs and 8-tracks and cassettes.
Yeah.
You got to figure, like, my generation, our generation, like, we couldn't, our music wasn't portable.
Right.
So you go into your car, which was such a big part of our lives, my life. I mean, cars still is a big deal for me, because that was my freedom, and that was where you lived, and that was where you met people, and that's where you had fun and everything else. But we couldn't play our own music. Well, 8-tracks came out. You can now take an 8-track from your house and play whatever you want in your own system.
Good point.
Which was a huge revelation, because you're not going to put a turntable in there. I mean, there's some cars back in there that had turntables, believe it or not, but the luxury Cadillacs and stuff had turntables built in back then, but they didn't work. But now you could bring your own music, and you weren't just slave to whatever was playing on, the new genre, which is FM radio. Before then it was AM. And then it was refined by cassettes, which was a step up. It was a better version of the 8-track without the clicks. Yeah, that you could rewind everything, because an 8-track you can never rewind. If you hear a song and you want to hear it again, you have to go through the whole thing again.
Yep, forward. The only way you could get to it.
But listening to some of the songs that I grew up listening to, again in my car, whatever, I can distinctly remember like when that click would come, because you expect it like in the middle of like the listen to Boston or something like that, in the middle of rock and roll, like click click, and then we go to track 2,
and you're singing and you're jamming and you're going to the music, and it's like pause
or fade.
Okay, go.
Sometimes it would fade,
True, yeah, it would.
One year, what I got for Christmas is I got which is right over there still, is I got an 8-track recorder.
Yeah, those were rare at the time, because it was such a small gap between the 8-track and the cassette that.
Yep. So you could go to Radio Shack. Yeah. Pick up some blank 8-tracks and make your own mixtapes. Yeah. And I would do that. So that was what I guess I was doing that in high school, even prior to being on the radio and stuff. So I guess I was kind of doing the mixtape. Craziness. So because I was on my own, music was huge and my car was huge. So that was always one and the same.
We could almost have an entire podcast about people and cars and music, because it's such a connection with people. So, but Jim O'Loughlin from You're Not Listening podcast, thank you so much for coming on and doing this. This is a great conversation. It's exactly what I look for when I do these types of podcasts.
And I apologize, I talk way too much because you get me excited talking.
Absolutely not. And if you want to do a second episode, we'll even do a second one.
No, I wouldn't subject you to do that. No, that'd be too painful. You'd be in therapy the rest of your life. Right?
I really appreciate your time coming on and doing the podcast with me, and I appreciate it. And I'll probably be on you guys' show in the next little bit again anyways then.
We've already talked about it, so we've got some things in the works for having you come back on. We'd love to have you. Awesome, Jim. Thanks again. I appreciate it. Thanks, sir. All right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you for choosing Music Musing. We hope this story not only gave you a little insight to what music means to someone, but it may also change how music fits into your life. So be sure and drop us a line at musicmusingfeedback@gmail.com and let us know your music story.